Welcome everyone to the first Secrets of Symbolism lecture slash workshop. Um, so this is with the Academy of Theosophia. We thought we'd put together a symbolism based kind of lecture series. One quick question as well. Can everybody see me in the bottom left or bottom right? Just to double check.
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so the aim of this one, or the aim generally, is to do a lot more. So I did the beginnings of this lecture last year, and it was called Finding the Philosopher's Stone, and it was to do with the four elements. But it was so much and so dense that almost it felt like every slide I was on needed its own talk. So ideally, we're going to be going very in depth into a lot of symbolism, and I thought this would be the best one to go with. It's a friendly maxim that we're all familiar with, as above, so below. Yeah, so we're going to dig into it, and if anyone has any questions or wants to talk, just talk or put your hand up. Yeah, at any point. Ideally, we want as much discussion throughout as we can, but as I was saying before, if people kind of new to it, then don't worry, you can just let me talk. Anyway, so let's get stuck into it. Okay, so just an overview of today is going to be the introduction, which we just did, what it is being the maxim. So I'm going to call as above, so below as the maxim, just to be shorter, so it's not a tongue twister. Investigate it philosophically, the meaning of it. This is going to be kind of going into the metaphysics of what it means, and then where it came from. So we're going to look at the cosmogenies of various cultures to shed light on the maxim. Um, and then lastly, what it evolved into. So it'll become clear as we go ahead. Okay, so first of all, the maxim, that which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above. There's been a lot of translations over time that actually, let me crack open my, there we go. A lot of translation over time that have said it in a different way, where it's as above, so below, and that's it. The word from was later added by scholars to as a point, because it's quite important that above is from below and below is from above. It adds a layer of complexity to it as well. Now, theosophically, this has been talked about a lot. Blavatsky's talked about it. Many other thinkers, the author of the Kybalion has talked about it. Today, what we're going to do is just kind of go into it a little bit deeper and just see what we find. So, what is the Emerald Tablet? Law-wise, or according to legend, it is the tablet of Hermes Trismegistus that was said to sit underneath either the dedication to Hermes or under in the whole of records in Egypt underneath the Sphinx. Claims vary, but it popped up around the 800s, 800 AD, from the Islamic Golden Age, and it's quite an enigma. It's claimed to be much earlier, but we just simply don't have any translations, or we can't source it any earlier. It's very mystical. A lot of claims were made about it. So yeah, Emerald Tablet. The tablet's also rumored to be indestructible, but they've been lost to time. So they were comprised by Hermes Trismegistus, who is called thrice great Hermes, and he might be thrice great because he's the combination of Thoth, Hermes, and Mercury. We don't actually know why he's thrice great. It's just a theory. He is what's called a syncretized deity of these three. So all of these three are messengers of God. They are God of scribes. They often are like the hand of God. Um, and we go into another few more later on. Tote is said to have written the entirety of the corpus of human knowledge, 360,000 books. And that number is no coincidence, 360,000 being 360, the circle. Um, so yeah, it's written by Hermes Trismegistus. So theosophically, the maxim is as a symbol for correspondence. So this is the words of Blavatsky in Isis Unveiled. I forgot to left out a quote. Forgot to say it's from Isis Unveiled. There is no prominent character in all the annals of sacred or profane history whose prototype we cannot find in the half fictitious and half real traditions. I know this is a mouthful um, of bygone religions and mythologies. That's what we will get into. As the star glimmering at the immeasurable distance above our heads in the boundless immensity of the sky reflects itself in the smooth waters of a lake, so does the imagery of men in the of the antediluvian ages reflect itself in the periods we can embrace in art in historical retrospect. As above, so below, that which has been will return again, as in heaven, so on earth. So it's this idea of correspondence. This is really a dense paragraph, so it's not really to for you to immediately understand, but rather just so you can kind of see it as a source of what is kind of spoken about in theosophical circles. So the thesis for today, this is what I'm putting forth to you guys, is the maxim is a symbol for the tension between the relative and the absolute, the material and the immaterial. This paradox has been symbolized in different forms throughout history, in ancient traditions as the Earth Mother and Sky Father, in geometry of the square and compass, in the Renaissance, the Vitruvian Man, and more abstractly, the concept of squaring the circle, the unsolvable problem that mirrors the paradox at the heart of our existence. So we'll get into what that means, squaring of the circle. These symbols point to the fundamental question of how we, as human beings, exist in both material and immaterial realms. They reflect the enduring mystery of how we are both finite and infinite, physical and spiritual, earthly and divine, a paradox that remains unsolved yet central to the human experience. So, what I'm getting at is this idea of um, there's this paradox that we are both material beings, yet we can't find our essence in our material bodies. We can't materialize the soul, and in the same way, we can't reduce the soul down to something that is material. So this is the full text of the Emerald Tablet, full in quotes, because there's a lot more. So truth, certainty, that in which there is no doubt, that which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above, working the miracles of one. As all things were from one, its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. The earth carried it in her belly, and the wind nourished it in her belly. As the earth shall become fire, feed the earth from that which is subtle with the greatest power. It ascends from the earth in heaven and becomes ruler over that which is above and that which is below. And I've already explained the meaning of the whole of this in two of the books of these books of mine. So very difficult to kind of tease apart. Um, does anyone have anything they would like to say about this text? I'm not sure if anyone has come across it before, if there's anything that has stuck out. If not, it's okay, I'll just move on. Just want to give you guys an opportunity to maybe speak to what you've read about it. Anyone on the other side? No, that's okay. Moving on. So, what does this mean metaphysically? To answer this, we must set ground rules. So, metaphysically, it's one of those weird long words that are thrown around, but um, can be, I don't know, difficult to get to the bottom of what it means. So, when I'm talking about metaphysics, I'm talking about um, the fabric of reality. So, what we're about to talk about here is the kind of canvas that we exist on and our internal self within it. So let's just get into it. You'll understand what I mean. So much of what we say is true is influenced by our culture, religion, and even species. To understand real truth, we must strip these variables back to nothing. what does life truly mean as simply conscious entities occupying reality? So when I ask what like what is the meaning of my life? And I answer it as to pay bills and to get a good job, that is a very culturally specific meaning of life. If I even say the meaning of life is to enjoy life, that perspective might be based off of the fact that I am a living creature on Earth. So if you ask someone on the other end of the earth, what is the meaning of life? They might say to have the biggest family possible. So culture influences our kind of metaphysics. It influences how we view the world and how we make value statements about it. So in order to really understand what am I as a thing, I cannot look culturally as a human being, as an Australian, as a Perthian. I have to look at it from the angle of what am I in the most pure sense as an existing thing? And this is what it means to strip away culture. So to do this, we're going to do what's called the brain in a vat thought experiment. So this is a philosophical term or thought experiment, which pretty much means that you're stripping away everything that you are, and you were just a mind floating in the cosmos. This allows us to strip us away from culture, the earth, and our body, and our memories, and our knowledge. We are just existing things. So, just to read the top first sentence here, in philosophy, the brain in a vat is a scenario used in a variety of thought experiments intended to draw out certain features of the human experience, features of human conceptions of knowledge, reality, truth, mind, consciousness, and meaning. So it's designed to kind of isolate features of the human experience pretty much. So assuming that we are in a brain in a vat, there's nothing, we don't know what we are. We're almost like at the point of birth where we're just floating in nothingness. What are the facts about the world that we absolutely can assert? And the first is that there at least is a world. This is seems obvious, but it isn't because in philosophy, philosophers like to tug at everything. Every single little point can be cause for doubt. And one thing you cannot doubt is that there is something in which doubt can occur in. So we have the world that exists. The second is that I am the thing in the world which exists. Without either of these two, the other could not exist. So, if I, as a conscious being, um, didn't exist or no minds existed, there's an argument in philosophy that the world ceases to exist because there's no conscious experience to perceive it. And just the same, if there isn't a world, consciousness cannot arise within it. And already we can start to see this kind of from that we saw at the beginning, where that which is above comes from that which is below, in the sense that the higher or the consciousness, the mind, literally comes from the material world, the same way that your internal consciousness right now came from you from the point of birth. And the world can only exist in a conscious mind. And so the world comes out of the conscious. And you have this kind of backwards law here. So these are the two absolute truths of the world. I promise this will get very important to as above, so below. And we're going to look at ancient mythology to kind of back this up. So you have the two overlapping realities, the ephemeral or the eternal and the material. They exist at the same time, these two realities. The material plane, just to define it, is everything tangible, physical, but also energy based. Anything that has existed since the Big Bang, even our bodies and therefore brains, psychology is dictated by the material plane. The immaterial plane, notice I can't really use any images for it because it's you can't really even visualize it, is the non-physical realm where concepts, thoughts, abstract principles exist independently of the material world. It's also consciousness and the soul, if you will. This includes mathematical concepts, morality, relationships between entities, identity, concepts of beauty, love, higher truth, and the divine. This realm knows no time. It cannot be conceived of without using something in the material plane to compare it to. So that last line touches upon what I'm talking about when I'm saying that if there isn't any minds, the material world cannot exist. And if there isn't a material world, then the conscious mind doesn't have anything to attach itself to. Okay, so this is just Plato's theory of forms. Anytime I use a Wikipedia uh, image, I'm not using it as an unironic source, but as a way of getting you to look into this, right? So any page that I bring up, definitely have a look into. So the theory of forms by Plato is that a major concept in metaphysics, the theory suggests that the physical world is not as real or true as the world of forms. Reading the highlighted part, um, ideas are timeless, absolute, non-physical, and unchangeable essences of all things. Ideas are literally real. So to go back, what Plato would be saying is this world of the I exist, the conscious experience, this world of the immaterial plane is what is primary, not the material plane. It's quite an interesting idea. Plato was very big on forms. He believed that everything in the material plane needed something in the immaterial plane in order to exist. So, a little thought experiment. How long has the Statue of David existed? So, what I mean by this is um, if I have a block of marble, the block of marble that Michelangelo used to create the Statue of David, before he created the Statue of David, the Statue of David was in there somewhere. Like the stuff, the material of Statue of David, just open this up. The material of the Statue of David um, is in that marble. Yet there isn't any boundary line around the Statue of David in order to say that he is there. Now, the question is, if you're a materialist, you would say that the Statue of David was there for millions of years. The Statue of David has existed in this world since heat and pressure at some point crushed that marble together to form him. If you're an idealist, the Statue of David was created at the moment that Michelangelo finished sanding him, right? Because the form, the Platonic form of the Statue of David is the Statue of David, not just the mere marble that he was used to create him. Because before Michelangelo created the Statue of David, if you have that big block of marble, what if he had chosen to carve another biblical figure, Solomon, right, his son? Um, now, how do we tease that apart? Like, in a way, in any block of marble is every single statue that could ever exist in the world, all at the same time. And so the only thing that makes a thing, sorry, this is very deep philosophy, and I'm going to get past it. I promise this is insufferable. I'll make it stop. The only thing that makes a thing is the idealistic form around it, not the material. A philosopher, Heidegger, famously wrote this paper. This was hell in philosophy. It was the most feared paper at the time. And he wrote this paper called What is a Thing? And he's essentially saying, that if you have a cup or a vessel, I wish I had one with me. If you have a cup or vessel, what defines the cup isn't the material, it's the absence of something in it. And it's this weird way of thinking in which he's essentially saying the form of the cup is the cup, not the material. Anyway, very interesting. We'll move past this. This is a little way of visualizing both the world of forms and the world of the material at the same time. I showed this in my lecture last year. And so we have the white dots, and any one dot is moving up and down just in a straight path. This is the material world. This is how the material world works with atoms, physicality. In science, it's said that everything is just billiard balls knocking into each other. atoms and such knocking into each other. So if you look at any one individual dot, it's just moving in a straight line. That's it. That's the end of its story. There's no circle, there's no movement, there's no relative. It's just a dot moving in a straight line. However, when you put these dots together, we have this illusion of a spinning circle. Now, here's the question. Does the circle exist or does it not exist? Is the circle there or not? Because a materialist would say there's no circle because there's only dots moving in straight lines. But an idealist would say there's absolutely a circle there. Why this is important is because in our everyday life, we're faced with this exact thing, a thing existing as a material thing and as an idealistic thing. And it resembles here the world of the relative and the world of the absolute existing on top of each other at the same time. And it creates a kind of brain frying about how they interact with each other. These are very difficult questions. Has David existed since the beginning of time? Is there a circle here or not? These are really hard things to answer. And this is the problem philosophically that in the Renaissance period they kind of get into. All right, moving on. This is another one. We'll move past it. It's essentially that the electromagnetic spectrum is infinite, yet we have colors, red, blue, green, so on. And this shows, again, the mind will impose order on chaos where it can. So let's get into the mythology. So we're going to read a few ancient texts. And so cosmogony here is defined as a theory of the origin of the universe, the creation or origin of the world or universe. Going back to our tablet here, we see point 2. Above is that from that which is below, and it says that all things were from one. It will also list a few correspondences: father, mother, moon and sun, earth and wind, and earth and fire. So you can kind of see here, and we'll back it up later, sorry, in the next point, that these cosmogenies at the beginning, there's always a separation of above and below. There's always a separation of heaven and earth. So the recurring motifs are the great primordial waters of chaos at the beginning. Sometimes it's not waters, sometimes it's just chaos. And this is the ancient mind saying, like we were all the way back here, just empty. Before this, before there was a world, before there was a mind, there was just pure chaos, blinding chaos. Either everything existed or nothing existed in most of these chaotic times, chaotic descriptions. Then there is a great giant at the beginning. And either this giant is divided into the heaven or earth or divides into heaven or earth. And the divine couple is produced. Take this off. Actually, I'll just put me there. There we go. Oh, yeah, there we go. And then there's normally a serpent involved. The serpent will either be, it's really interesting. The serpent will either be the great primordial waters, the giant, or one of the divine couples, or both. So this serpent is always associated at the beginning, but it changes its place in it. Just like in the Bible, the serpent is much after God created the heaven, so on. In the Babylonian myth, the serpent is the giant, and in another myth, the serpent is akin to chaos, everything. So the Enuma Elish, this is the Babylonian creation story. Very interesting. This predates, if I'm not mistaken, it predates the Bible by at least 500 years. I know that the culture stretches back to 1,000 years before it, but I'm not certain whether the Enuma Elish is actually more recent than we might realize. But it's before the Bible. And it says, when on high the heaven had not been named, firm ground below had not been called by name. naught but primordial Absu, their begetter. So Absu is, sorry, I'll keep reading, their begetter, and Mumu, Tiamat, she who bore them all, their warders commingling in a single body. So you have Absu and Tiamat, they're a divine couple at the beginning of time. Now, Absu is the god of fresh water, Tiamat is the god of seawater or salt water. And it always speaks of their waters commingling, which is what the ancient Babylonian thought what created life. Um, why they thought this? Just to explain it, it's very interesting. I promise you, you'll find it intriguing. Is that a lot of people will know from the Bible this idea of a vault being created where waters are encapsulating the entire cosmos. This is why the serpent of chaos circles around the world. This is the Ouroboros in Greek myth and so on, or Jormungandr, the snake that wraps around the world. This is because the waters of chaos wrap around the world. Why they thought this is because if think about it, strip away your culture completely. Take yourself back in time. You don't know how the world works. All you know is if you walk forward, you're going to hit water. If you walk to the side, you're going to hit water. You walk back, you're going to hit water. Eventually, you're going to hit water, and it gives you a ring of water all around you. And then if you dig downwards, you get water. And where does rain come from? Above you. So the ancient man thought that water was just everywhere. It came from the sky, it's in the ground, and it's to the left, to the right, in front of me, and behind me. So they have this idea of waters being around everything. And Absu is the god of fresh water. So they drew a distinction between the water you can drink and the water you can't, the water which creates life, and the water which doesn't. And Tiamat was the god of the sea, salt water. Anyway, so what happened with Tiamat is that Marduk fought her and destroyed her. And it said here that, and unto Tiamat, whom he had conquered, he returned, and the Lord stood upon Tiamat's hinder parts, and with his merciless club he smashed her skull, he cut through the channels of her blood, and he made the north wind bear it away into secret places. And then it goes on to, while he divided the flesh of the lost and devised a cunning plan, he split her up like a flat fish in two halves. One half he established as a covering for heaven. He fixed a bolt and stationed a watchman and bade them not to let her waters come forth. And then he created the earth. So he cleaved her body into heaven and earth for whatever, why ever this was so. Also, quick note, the kind of end notes of the Enuma Elish talk of when above and mentions Nebo. Nebo is very significant as well, just because he is the ancient inspiration for Tot. He's the god of scribes and the hand of God, the scribe of God. He is the god of wisdom, god of writing and learning and so on. Famously carrying this little handbag here which ancient alien conspiracists always love. And he inspired Totes, and he's kind of a Hermes Trismegistus figure. This would loosely associate this Enuma Elish with the Emerald Tablets. Very quickly, the Bible, straight away at the beginning, says God created the heavens and the earth, the two planes of the immaterial and the material. The earth was a formless void. There's your chaos at the beginning of time. And darkness was covered on the face of the deep, right? What let's get rid of me there. While a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. There's that wind as well, as mentioned in the Emerald Tablet, where it talks about the wind in the belly and so on. Now, a line on Genesis 1:6, and God said, let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. This has been endlessly kind of debated about in religious circles. Um, what does that mean? What does the separation of waters from waters mean? Now, because we looked at the Enuma Elish, which predated the Bible, it illuminates what that means. The separation of waters from waters is the separation of Absu and Tiamat. It's the separation of the fresh water and the sea water. That's what the separation of waters from waters is. Um, okay, and then at the end, God created dry land, right? So we have the same pattern again. Armenian mythology. Very quickly, heaven was in labor, earth was in labor, the purple sea was also in labor. The sea being in labor is important because Tiamat was in labor and created all of the gods. And this figure here, Vahan, I think I'm pronouncing it, is the dragon reaper, and Tiamat is associated with the great serpent, sometimes with the dragon. And this Van here is almost like a Marduk figure that slayed the dragon. Ymir, Norse mythology. I don't know if people have heard of Ymir before. So he fashioned the earth from his flesh, from his blood, the ocean, from his bones, the mountains, from his hair, the trees, from his brains, the clouds, from his skull, the heavens. So we have that same pattern here of the body of the great deity at the beginning of time being cut apart and the world being created from them. Quite interesting. So Phanes, very shortly in Orphic cosmogony, Phanes is often depicted as a deity emerging from a cosmic egg entwined with a serpent, the Orphic egg. He's the grandfather of Uranus and Gaia, which is the sky and earth. His child directly, this is debated. There's so many different iterations of Greek myth. But his child is Nyx, which is night and often associated with chaos at the beginning of time. And then from Nyx, you have Uranus and Gaia, the sky and earth. As you can see here, he's entwined in the serpent, and in a way, he is the serpent, in a way. So this is the cosmic egg motif. Very interesting motif. Pretty much what it is that in a lot of mythologies around the world, an egg is at the beginning of time, and the hatching of it creates the universe. We'll explore that in a minute, though. So this is a very lesser known cosmogony, the Dogon tribe. So this is an African tribe in Mali, one of the most incredible studies if you get a chance to, because the most mysterious element of them is that they know about the star Sirius, I think Sirius B, with a level of knowledge that shouldn't be so. Um, they have all of these intricate and complex stories about beings that came from Sirius and so on. And in their cosmogony, they too have an Orphic egg, or sorry, an egg, cosmic egg, and the seven vibrations of the egg of the world came out of the egg. Also, the four elements as well. And of course, we've heard of seven vibrations or seven starting points, seven rays, if you will. Quite interesting. I want to dig into in a later symbolism session into what they are talking about with these seven vibrations. So their myth is that the sky god Amma takes the form of an egg. Um, After mating with the earth goddess, the egg is divided into four sections representing the four elements earth, air, fire, water. This also establishes the four cardinal directions. Sorry, did someone say something? Or are we okay? All good if not. Okay, all good. In the beginning, Amma uh, Dogon alone was in the shape of an egg. Yeah, it's just a reiteration of what's above. So, according to, I'm not going to pronounce that, Ogotameli's description of them, Numo, very important name because in the Egyptian pantheon, the god of water or primordial waters beginning of time is just Nu. And in the Sumerian belief, the god of waters at the beginning of time is Namu. very similar to Numo. So this might indicate a relationship between ancient Mesopotamia and Africa, which is huge and it's not established in literature, but there seems to be some evidence for it. Um, yeah, so the first two humans were half human, half fish. Make of that what you will. So this is the most important or interesting at the very least, is the Chinese creation account. So long, long ago, the heaven and earth were still one. The entire universe was contained in an egg-shaped cloud. All the matter of the universe swirled chaotically in that egg. So straight off the bat, we have heaven and earth, the chaotic swirling of uh, chaos. I need to mention as well that all of these mythologies, it might sound like, so what if they all say heaven and earth at the beginning, or they all have these similarities, but it's important to recognize how separate a lot of these cultures are. There is, as far as we know in the archaeological record, not a lot of communication between these groups. Um, so it's profound that in all of their cosmogonies, they have the same recurring heaven and earth dichotomy. And the point that I'm making is I think there's a reason for this, is that, as I said, when we strip away everything and you have the purest human experience that you can, it's that division of I exist and the world exists. That is heaven and earth. So all the matter of the universe swirled chaotically in the egg. Deep within the swirling matter was Pan Gu. Pan, I'm sure some of you might hear Pan meaning all. Uh, Quite interesting, and it isn't what it means in the Chinese myth. So it's quite a coincidence. A huge giant who grew into the chaos for 18,000 years. 18,000, very important number. He developed and slept in the egg. Finally, one day he awoke and stretched, and the egg broke to release the matter of the universe. The lighter, purer elements drifted upwards to make the sky and the heavens, and the heavier, impure elements settled downwards to make the earth. In the midst of this new world, Pangu worried that the heaven and earth might mix again, so he resolved to hold them apart with the heavens on his head and the earth under his feet. Um, yeah, we just a bit of brevity, we'll move on. But later down there it says that with his death, the world got its characteristics. So his arms and legs became the four directions, his blood became the rivers, his sweat became the rain. There it is again. So you have Norse mythology, Chinese myth, ancient Sumerian, all with this giant dying to make the world. Quite interesting. Uh, Another aspect of the creation story is in the beginning, there was yet no moral or social order. Very funny because you can see in China today, they have a huge emphasis on social order, and you can see it in their creation myths. Um, the fear here is what they're talking about is social chaos, whereas in the other myths, it's just chaos more generally. I'm just going to point to the highlighted parts at the bottom. Um, Fuji came, and Fuji is the masculine entity that came after Pangu, and the feminine entity is Nuwa. Fuji came and looked upwards and contemplated the images in the heavens. Funny as images, because images as depictions are immaterial expressions, and looked downward and contem contemplated, sorry, the occurrences on Earth. What this almost implies is that occurrences cannot happen in the heavens. Only images or forms can happen in the heavens. It's really interesting use of language there. It's not an accident that only the images happen in the heaven, the occurrences, the real things happen on Earth. He united man with a wife, regulated the five stages of change, and laid down the laws. So people view Fuji as Enoch, the biblical patriarch. Funny because Enoch becomes Metatron, who's the scribe of God, and is connected to Hermes Trismegistus as the scribe of God. The messenger of God is Metatron, Enoch, Fuji. Um, so that's Pangu on the left, and Nuwa on the right, as you can see the snake form. Nuwa alone has so much to her myth. She is the one who created humanity and not Pangu. And she created, it's very funny. She created the first, so she was the first being, not Adam. It's not like an Adam and Eve thing. It wasn't Adam, it was Eve, Nuwa, who was first. And she created humanity out of clay. There's a creation from clay, another incredible coincidence, apparently. And it's funny because the Hebrew word for clay is Adamah. Um, so it would make sense that the first created being from Noah is a male. So this is them together. And as you can see, the serpentine form intertwined together. On the left, you can see the sun above and the moon below because one was associated with the sun and one with the moon. And they're intertwined. And I wanted to include in this image, where I chose not to, just the what's it called? Yeah, cool. Just I wanted to include the double helix structure of what's it called? DNA. And it's so hard not to make the connection because these two created humanity and the masculine and feminine purest form, and they're intertwined in a double helix, which is the structure that creates life. Like DNA comes together and literally forms a double helix out of the mother and the father's DNA. It's incredible. Um,
There's a there's an interesting connection there as well, but from that
yep,
myth you said before with the first humans were half human, half fish, and they look very fishy there.
yeah.
Mm.
Um, oh, there's so many connections with like hermaphroditism and stuff like that as well. Um, and kind of being kind of like amphibians, like half on Earth, half in the water, which is an amphibious thing. And amphibians are what is it? Like hermaphrodites, they can change sexes. So I find it really interesting. And yeah, so as you can see in the top right corner, left corner, don't know what it is for you guys. Um, they're actually holding a square and compass and in the right order too. This was incredible. I'm sure my Perth folk might have seen this on my last one in person last year, but it's just incredible. Uh, because the masculine square and the feminine compass, and just in case anyone's wondering, it's 100% a square and compass. I know it looks like she's holding scissors, but it's a compass closed. Um, and it's just the tool of the compass creates circles or relative abstract forms, and the compass creates the straight lines. We're going to get into it later. Um, so quite incredible. The four elements at the bottom there as well, as you can see, they create a natural. You might wonder why aren't the four element symbols orchestrated into four unique symbols? Why are they the same symbol with a slight variation? Because two are pointing up to the heavens above, and two are pointing down below. And it's no coincidence that air and fire are both immaterial structures. So I'll get into this in the four elements talk. But air is immaterial and fire is immaterial. It's a reaction. And that's why it's pointing upwards towards heaven, the immaterial. And earth and water are both material. One's chaotic, one's ordered. And henceforth they're pointing downwards. And that's why the four elements are not four completely unique symbols. Like in theory, it should be one pointing up, one pointing down, one pointing to the side, one pointing to the other side, but it isn't. It's up and down. So these are the divine symbols of masculine and feminine, right? The square and the compass, the upwards pointing triangle being the masculine, and the downwards pointing triangle being the feminine, which is the point or the phallus and the womb as well in symbolically. And then put together, you have the Shaktona, right, or the Seal of Solomon, the merging of. It's also the amalgamation of the four elements. The Shakona is a symbol used in Hindu yantra, a six-pointed star. It's made from two interlocking triangles. The upper stands for Shiva, uh, Puresha, the lower Shakti, Prakti. Their union gives birth to Kumara, whose sacred number is six. Anyway, it's the masculine and feminine forces. And as you can see there, Shiva Shakti, very, very divine symbol. It's such a good symbol. It's like so many symbols on top of each other at the same time. And that's why so many cultures use it. Now, I think this might be the last of the gods, Brahma. I'm going to go past it. So, in my research, there are so many claims to the origins of Brahma. It was bewildering. It was insane. Um, it's just one after the other. It's like, oh, Brahma was created because of this. Brahma wasn't the first. It was Mahadevi, and Brahma was a secondary. And then it just goes on and on. And so I just picked like three mentions of it to show you the important parts. So Brahma came from a kind of cosmic egg as well. This is not something I previously knew. It's the embryo from which the world emerged. And this is from Rig Veda. I'm going to just move past it. The Puresha Sukta says that creation, let me get rid of myself here, creation arises out of the dismemberment of Puresha, a primeval cosmic being who was sacrificed by the gods. Again, the sacrifice of the gods to create creation. This being's body was the origin of the four different kinds of people: Brahmin, Rajanya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And yeah, so incredible stuff. So in the Matsya Purana, there was darkness everywhere. Everything was in a state of sleep. Just like who was sleeping in the egg? Pangu was sleeping in the egg, sleeping in chaos, sleeping in darkness, the same darkness of Nyx, right? There was nothing either moving or static. And you can see as well, sorry to keep cutting myself off, but I said that chaos is either defined as everything or nothing. In some myths, chaos is just a blanket nothing. In other myths, it's everything, everywhere, all at once at the same time. And it's important because what it means is when there's a cosmogeny, sometimes it's like a big bang where it's everything was created out of nothing, or sometimes it's the opposite, where the world was limited into existence, where God kind of put a filter on himself in order to have what we have now. Incredible separation. So this leads to the writing of the Timaeus. So now we've moved past really ancient and we're going into kind of the middle period of Plato. And Plato wrote his Timaeus, which is the cosmogony about how he likely thought the world existed. And he begins with the distinction between the physical world and the eternal world. This is his eternal world of forms. The physical one is the world which changes and perishes. Therefore, it is the object of opinion and unreasoned sensation. The eternal one never changes, therefore is apprehended by reason. Uh, Timaeus suggested that since nothing becomes or changes without cause, then the cause of the universe must be a demiurge or a god. Uh, Timaeus refers to the father and maker of the universe. So this is where this idea, some more fringe people think this is literally the idea of the God that the Christians later used to kind of color in the Christian sense of God. But it's quite interesting. This is really a genesis point of how the Western world will view metaphysics. So everything, I know I just explained everything, but to the ancient man, they didn't read into the various cultures of the other world. So this was the first kind of big one, big amalgamation of this is how the world is into the Western world, the Timaeus. Uh, okay. Am I good? Okay. Can you guys, did I like freeze or anything or freak out? Is everything okay?
No.
No,
Yeah.
everything's all good. All
My
good.
screen glitched. I was worried that I was like talking into nothing for a moment. Okay, so from this you have the geometer. This is where this demiurge, as you can see here, this is William Blake in the middle. This is William Blake's famous artwork of the demiurge. And the idea was that God created the universe out of a form of mathematics or sacred geometry. Um, he created it out of the planes of the immaterial, the relative, and the material, the absolute. And he somehow amalgamated these two forces, the square and with the square and compass, symbolic square and compass, not actual square and compass, in order to create the universe. This is where the symbol will go from the sky father and earth mother, and it transforms into this kind of square and compass, or at the very least, circle and square kind of. Sorry, it's not the square and compass yet. It's the circle and square, which is not the same thing. Of course, a compass will make a circle and a square will make a square, but the symbol of the circle and the square is not the same thing. So, as you can see here, as we move into the medieval period, you have artworks of the geometer, right? God being the great mathematician of the world. And this came out of two sources. First, it was Pythagorean philosophy, which started to create this beautiful mathematics of the world and this harmony that exists between entities, and a combination of Euclid's geometry. One of that's, yep, birth of geometry with Euclid. So he was an ancient Greek mathematician, active as a geometer and logician, considered the father of geometry. He is known for the Elements treatise, which established the foundations of geometry. So really comes from this guy. And from this point onwards, Euclid is then used to draw upon kind of a sacred geometry that persists for a very long time. Now, from Euclid came this problem. Sorry, I'll cover again this idea of the celestial realm and the earthly realm as well is here. So this is Michelangelo's I forgot what it's called, something Athens, School of Athens or something. It's Plato's over here with Aristotle, and in the corner is this depiction that is used in Freemasonry later on. And I was like, wow, look at that. That kind of predates what I thought it predated. Michelangelo depicting here, Euclid is on the floor here, with the celestial and material realms above him. Now, this is the what came out of Euclid, the problem of squaring the circle. Now, how does this tie in? So the squaring the circle problem in geometry is proposed by in Greek mathematics. It is the challenge of constructing a square with the area of a given circle by using only a finite number of steps with a compass and a straight edge. The difficulty of the problem raised the question of whether specified axioms of Euclidean geometry concerning these is applies. Okay, that was a mouthful. What it's saying is this, is that how do we depict, using a square and compass, a square and a circle with the same surface area? So as you can see, there's the red circle, and there's a surface area within it, and then there's the square, and there's a surface area in that. How do we make a square and a circle with the same surface area? Right? And the issue is that you mathematically cannot. It is impossible. Why this is so is because the square is finite. So it has a finite kind of surface area. But the circle is infinite. Pi is infinite, 3.14, so on. It goes on for infinity, meaning that the area of a circle is technically infinite. This is called another iteration of this is called the coastline paradox. It's like you have Australia and you draw like a line around Australia. The more accurate you draw the line, the longer the perimeter gets. And then if you just keep going, the perimeter of Australia will just go on forever because you can just, as you get more detailed with your measurement techniques, you eventually will just make that perimeter longer and longer and longer. So the circle is infinite. It has an infinite surface area. Not in it's infinitely big, but it'll be like a surface area of like 4.18971. It just goes on forever. So that's the squaring of the circle. And this acts as the symbol for the relative and absolute plane, right? So later on in architecture, This is Vitruvius here. And when architecture makes its kind of pop up, there's this culmination of Pythagoreanism, Platonism, and Euclidean geometry. And Vitruvius is the father of architecture, right? Created in his architecture, in his philosophy, the combination of these philosophies. Um, Now, Vitruvius, you might have heard of before. He's actually the man in the squaring of the circle. And as you can see here, I just want to quickly point to his hands and feet are touching, like where his hand is here is touching the square and the circle, is touching these intersection points, indicating that man's geometry is in between the relative and absolute planes. This is his first ever squaring and circle of the circle, the divine proportions, father of architecture Vitruvius, and this is Leonardo da Vinci of Vitruvius himself, called the Vitruvian Man, right? And he depicts it slightly differently, where there's the twofold man here, and one of them is touching only the interior of the square, and the other one is just touching the interior of the circle, indicating that man has access to both the divine relative planes and the absolute planes, the Sky Father and Earth Mother. Agrippa, the father of occultism, would later use this as well to explicitly say what I just said. When in Da Vinci's time, it just existed as a lofty idea, but Agrippa concretized it as the uh, the divine man has access to the relative and absolute planes, and he has a whole very complicated work. Um, yeah. So then after this, we go into the time of alchemy, and you have all of these ideas of alchemical union. This is this literally Renaissance meaning revival, right? This revival of all the old geometry of the past, this revival of Hermetic philosophy, of this idea of Hermes Trismegistus, of this idea of the emerald tablet, the philosopher's stone being the thing that exists at the point of all creation. Now, a lot of people don't realize the philosopher's stone actually used to exist as the stone of the philosophers, in which it wasn't like a magical kind of rock, but it was the principle or bedrock or truth that the philosopher could then use to assert all the rest of his claims. And that's why we can never find the philosopher's stone, because we've never found a defining principle of the world. So the philosopher's stone resembles this harmony of opposites, right? Just a few, as you can see here, this is a depiction of divine alchemical union between masculine and feminine, intertwining of the tales. It's just art like this forever. This is where the four elements makes a revival, and so on. So here we have here, this is alchemical art in this time of revival of the emerald tablets, this talk of as above, so below. The wind hath carried it in its belly. This is, as you see, the Sky Father on the left there with the divine child in the belly, and then the earth, its nurse. And that's the Earth Mother, quite literally an Earth Mother. That's a crazy depiction, um, but it's an Earth Mother nonetheless. And so that's what we have, this harmony of um, the absolute, the the fact that we are a material being, we are children of the Earth Mother, but at the same time, we very clearly have access to something higher. And this strange inability for us to tessellate sits as a nexus point in our psychology that creates this confusion about how things work. I just want to say on the last point that when Plato said in his theory of forms that the world of forms was primary, he was mistaken. The as above, so below dichotomy is not saying the world of forms is primary and the material world is secondary. It's saying as above, so below, as below, so above. It is not saying that one world is primary. It's telling the philosopher to go back to the drawing board and find a way to tessellate both. Don't just argue that the immaterial world is everything or the material world is everything and the other one is just an afterthought. modern philosophers today, like Richard Dawkins, and so on, he's not really a philosopher, but the hard materialists today argue that the material is everything. The immaterial doesn't exist. The soul is an illusion of consciousness, right? That this world of immaterialness doesn't exist. And this is like an anti-Plato that said the only world that does exist is the world of forms. So, as above, so below, as a principle, telling the philosopher or theosopher, go back to the drawing board, find a way to find the philosopher's stone and merge heaven and earth together. So, thank you for listening to my presentation. Um, I understand I went through that fast and brought up a lot of points, but I want to hear if anyone has any questions. No one has any questions or anything, that's all right as well. But I'm glad for those who stuck around. And yeah, okay, all right.
Malik,
Yes,
Angelo here. So the conclusion, well, you didn't say this explicitly, but so above and below are the same, is
yeah,
what you are saying, isn't it?
yes,
Like there are two levels of the same thing, and although you can be a materialist and
yes.
to claim that everything is coming from, like from material substance, and
Mhm.
again, if you are someone who is spiritual and like claims that everything is coming from a spiritual substance, at the end of the at the end of the yes, at the end, like everything is the same thing, like the two substances are the same.
I think the hopefully I'm going to reiterate it and hopefully it gives clarity. I might not answer your question, just ask it again. But the as above, so below problem or the squaring of the circle is the fingerprint of God in that in such that it's mathematically impossible. How are we material beings, but we are conscious, but we cannot find consciousness in the material, and we cannot find material in the consciousness? That inability for us to tessellate indicates that the great miracle, whether we want to call it the Big Bang or beyond the Big Bang, I don't even think the Big Bang is the main event of the universe. But what I think is that there are two camps. One will try and characterize that everything is just the material world. The material world was first, and the immaterial world is an afterthought. There just is a happy coincidence that came out of it. But then there's the other view that consciousness is everything, and the material world is just this kind of happening that allows us to experience our consciousness. The sentiment that people have is like the universe is just God allowing to, limiting itself to understand itself, and we're all God, stuff like that. Um, I think that the as above, so below maxim is saying, I hope this answers your question, that it's both. You can't say one is primary and the other one is secondary. It's this cognitive dissonance of both principles are true. And it feels impossible to us. It's like it can't be possible that both are true. And that impossibility is the miracle. It's the great miracle. It is the philosopher's stone. It's the holy grail. It's whatever. It's the final end stage of, the great discovery that the philosopher, the magnum opus, is the harmony between those two concepts. I hope that is answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. I what I'm also yeah, it's what I'm getting is also like we as human beings, we're on this midpoint of heaven and earth.
Yes,
And
we're the only thing in the universe that we know of that can that has like the way I view it is I believe the world of the image. Sorry to cut you off, James. I'll let you talk in a minute as well. I thought I'd get this out to
yeah, go.
right. The world of the immaterial is everywhere. It's not even spatial. It's just this existence on top of materiality. But if I grab this is like a book, right? Dead Sea Scrolls. There's no soul in this. And if, well, sorry, there is a soul in this, but this book will never speak. The only thing capable of expressing consciousness is human entities or life. Now, a dog might be able to express consciousness, but not very well. So, a creature must attain a level of intelligence, evolutionarily speaking, before it can communicate its own consciousness, right? Um, we know this book is primates. You can see amongst our cousins, right, the degrees of consciousness that they're discovering. Some primates can't recognize their own image. Other primates do. I think there was a gorilla that asked like a kind of philosophical question in sign language. This sounds like nonsense. It's not. It asked like, "What am I?" or something like that, right? So I think as you get more intelligent, you're able to express your own consciousness, which is in everything. It's in rocks and trees and everything. So human beings, this is the way I view it. Human beings are almost like these gifted um, almost like that duty is assigned to us, so that we're the only thing, so far that we know that has access to the divine and the material. And it's our duty to bring the reason and virtues of the divine and colonize it into the material. This is the Christian bringing heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Uh, is it
I very much agree. I was going to say also, like, yeah, it is kind of like our responsibility, and like all these archetypes, we have this big sort of in between responsibility, and also the going back to the myths, the cosmogonies, all these deities making humans out of clay, like these heavenly beings using the earth to make humans. So it's like we have this heavenly aspect, these higher beings, this higher intelligence made of clay. So
yeah.
like, we're both, yeah. It's like
Yes, and it's like in mythology, I didn't get to cover it, but man is made from clay, but he's always has the breath of life
that's it.
into him, right? It's
In the
like,
Prometheus myth, it's I think Athena breathes wisdom from clay that Prometheus uses.
yeah, absolutely. There's so many. The creation from clay is just so pervasive, and it's such a good symbol, right? We're going to get into all of this. Hopefully, if we continue this symbolism talk, like I have like a kind of thing. I want to get into creation from clay, the four elements, sky, mother, earth, father. So I'd be excited to get into it. But I just want to respond to Leif and Ben or Leif and Bren. Could another possible meaning that be that both are equally important and one could not exist without the other? One could not exist without the other is the best way of putting it because, like, as soon as you can't visualize a material world without an immaterial conscious mind. It's impossible. It's almost like does a tree that falls in the forest really fall? And you cannot visualize pure consciousness without like question begging some materiality to it, right? So if you're just consciousness and there's no material world, there's no point of separation by which consciousness could exist. And this is why I think the symbol of the yin yang is so good because it almost even says the what's it called? The maxim as above, so below is above is from below, the same way that yin is in yang. So, like yin is from yang and yang is from yin, right? And it's this backwards law. Beautiful. So,
But
yeah,
yeah, that also makes me think about the concept of NPCs or non-player characters.
yeah.
They're not
Automatons in
because
philosophy.
they're not conscious of the spiritual realm. They're actually not actually existing because in order to actually really
Yes,
exist,
exactly. But the question is this, is that why do we exist? Like, not in a material sense, but why aren't we humans just biological machines that, like, for example, we could be having in another universe, right, in which there's no immaterial world, we could be having this conversation and there's no one behind us. There's no awareness in us. It's just these material biological machines having internal computation and then engaging in a social interaction, right? Why why is there anyone home? And that no materialist can answer. And that's Descartes' I think, therefore I am, right? Is that we know that there is something there. There is consciousness because, in theory, someone in this chat could just be an automaton, right, with no one home, and we wouldn't be able to tell. But I know that I'm here, hopefully, right? You know that you're here. So if the immaterial us does exist, then how far does that stretch? And where does that come from? Because we know it's not material. So
Malik,
yes.
a way how I see it is, when you look at a space is emptiness, but you can touch a space. Like one of the big mysteries in physics is what a space is, but
Mm-hmm.
you put objects into a space. So the object can exist without the space, but the space exists for the object to be there in that space. But you
Yes.
never can touch the space where the object is existing, but the
Yeah.
two things are coexisting at the same time.
Yeah. It's mind bending that um that is it's almost the I don't know if this answers your question, but it's almost like the paradox of existence. I don't know if anyone has heard of the paradox of existence, but um non-existence, this might sound ridiculous. Non-existence, like if you picture this universe, right? And then outside of the universe is just nothing. Non-existence, in order for non-existence to exist, it has to exist. So if non-existence then exists, then there's no non-existence. There's only existence. I know that might sound completely confusing, but just picture like the Big Bang, right? We have this universe, and then outside of the stretches of the Big Bang is nothing. But if nothing is there, then that means that nothing exists. And if nothing exists, then there's no such thing as non-existence. And it's like, it's
It's a,
mind-bending.
yeah, it's almost like something it exists. Something only exists to the point where something has a comprehension of it. But
Yes.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah. But then there's a question of like, okay, well, uh like does a square circle exist? No. So there is that kind of non-existence. But in the metaphysical non-existence is impossible. I actually am from the camp that says or believes that in the beginning there was everything. And the universe that we live in now it wasn't like there was non-existence and then the Big Bang happened. The Big Bang didn't happen, right? But I'm talking before the Big Bang. I think what happened is that everything existed, as said in Kabbalah, the Ein Sof, everything existed. And then what actually happened was nothing, like non-existence, popped into existence in a weird way. So almost like a vacuum was created of existing stuff. And that allowed the universe as we know it to exist. Because in order for some existence to occupy existence, this is getting crazy now. In order for existence to, to burst into existence, there has to be non-existence. But,
I,
yep,
I will say that the no existence is always there, generally because the space is always there, and we can see it, but it's there.
the
You
issue,
can touch you can touch a space, but is the manifested interacting with what is manifested. And I am
yeah,
putting it in practical terms. Obviously you can go back in time, but I think that if you are just here, just right here now, you can actually realize that your body is occupying a space, but that
yeah,
space doesn't exist. What it exists is the body, but the space allows the body to exist. So that space exists, although we can see it.
I see. So it was almost like the universe is a canvas, and when you paint something on the canvas, it takes the space of the canvas.
Exactly. But and the space is always there on the background,
Oh, I like that analogy. That's
on
good.
the object. And the object is our bodies and all what is matter or material is occupying that space, but the space is what is no yes, like it is what is not visible. Look, I will say that to me, actually, that space is what is consciousness. It's just that maybe we don't realize that, but the space where everything exists is consciousness. But there is a dichotomy because obviously, when it exists, we call that matter, like materia.
Yes.
But that materia doesn't exist without the space where consciousness exists.
I think this really links to the Kabbalah, as you said, like the Ein Sof, like that whole emanation of nothing and then void and then creation.
Yes. I think that it's like a great filter, right? So this blew my mind, right? You have Ein Sof. Ein means I in Hebrew, kind of, right? And to me, that's awareness. So Ein Sof was the first thing. All that was I, Ein, awareness, and Sof. Sof means end. And to me, it's almost like in Gnosticism, where Sophia, I know this sounds weird, but Sophia, Soph, end, Sophia created the material world. But she didn't do through an act of creation. She did it through defiling existence. She tried to create her own existence. And it was a crude, disgusting, uh, like limitation on the true God. And in that way, she wasn't creating something, she was ending something. Not fully, but she was creating a void as opposed to creating a possibility. And so this is interesting thing where it's like Ein Sof, awareness and end. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I just had to look at it. Yeah, it's Ein Sof at the start, which is the boundless light, and then after that is Ein Sof, which is just the boundless. So it loses like the light,
there's that
as you just said.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
but be very careful with Hebrew translations into English. They are like I know I just did it, but I'm doing so like treading lightly. Hebrew is like I think it's one of the most confusing languages. It's just like like for example, Aleph, right? Aleph also means nothing, and it's like okay, but doesn't isn't Ein Sof nothing? And it goes, no, it's a different kind of nothing. And I was just like, took me like hours to understand it. But yeah, anyway, I just thought it was an interesting coincidence because it's believed by some historians that Gnosticism came out of Kabbalah or it came out of Jewish mysticism, which would make sense how Ein Sof is the beginning, creation of the universe, and Sophia, the end of the God in the Gnostic tradition. It's just a coincidence. But yeah, anyway. Um, yeah, does anyone have anything else to chime in on?
Malik, I have an issue when you were explaining I am, like at the beginning of, like of creation, that you
Hmm.
say you realize that I am here. So, and then you realize that something is there. So then creation happens. But why that, why I am doesn't realize that actually what is there is because I am. Like if you are not conscious of yourself, whatever you perceive the outside couldn't exist because you first need to be I am. So it means then that
Wait,
anything that you
let me
realize
let me
outside
clarify.
yourself.
Yeah, I just to be clear, are you saying that like almost like if you were just consciousness of everything outside of yourself, you wouldn't really be conscious?
No, it should be it should be yourself. It should be conscious because you are the one who realize that you are there. So let's say you realize that you are conscious.
Hmm.
So at the moment that you do that, everything around, everything that you can perceive or observe becomes part of what you are because you are consciousness. The only way how it can be a dichotomy between who you are and the external world is that you forget who you are.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, so you're saying that in a way, they're both connected.
They both are connected, but they both are the same, but they look different because we forget who we are.
I see what you
We
mean.
are we are the totality, which the totality is consciousness. But at the moment that you forget who you are, immediately then you have a dichotomy.
I see what you mean, but I think in order to hold that view, you have to start with the belief that you already think everything is consciousness.
But even take off consciousness. If you are just an observer, someone who are here, everything that exists to that person exists through that person. Otherwise, you are saying that exists without yourself.
Okay, I see what you mean.
How are you sure that what is the outside can exist without you?
It was like we're in the debate group again.
Yeah. No, honestly, this could be one. This will be so good. Okay, I know what you mean. Okay. I don't. So what I'm saying is that there has to be a canvas in order for the artwork to exist, right? An artwork a consciousness cannot float in existence. There has to be a space in which consciousness occupies.
No, the way how I see it is that the space is what is consciousness. Consciousness is a
That's what I
space.
meant. You have to already, it's almost like question begging, like you're already saying that everything is consciousness, therefore everything is consciousness.
No, everything is not consciousness if you forget who you are. Even though you use the term consciousness, just take it off. If you are an observant, you are observing reality. That's the only absolute that you have, that you are. That you are here observing.
So
you don't have a guarantee that what is the outside exists outside of yourself.
Yeah.
You never can prove that.
This is a hard problem of consciousness.
No, you can. Yes. No.
How can you prove? How can you prove?
Okay, I'll get to it. So this is called in philosophy Berkeleyan idealism, and he argued that this was an argument for God, that there has to be a mind or nothing exists. He's the one who said, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to watch it, it never fell at all. And this is the same argument that if there's no minds, there's no material world. And as soon as there's a mind, then there's a material world. Therefore, the material world is an aspect of the mind or consciousness. As soon as you have a consciousness, the material world is there. Therefore, the material world is consciousness because it's dependent upon it. Is that the structure?
Yes, but I want you to prove me that the world can exist without that consciousness.
Cat and tail as well.
Give me an example that it proves that actually something can exist without me existing in my consciousness.
I wrote about this in philosophy. I had a whole essay on this. The way that we can do this is because we can witness. So if you believe that perception, right? Perception creates reality. There's the issue of multiple different minds or multiple different points of consciousness agree upon the same material world, indicating that the material world is something outside of consciousness. Because if there are two entities, right, and they both have consciousness and they both perceive the world around them, then that means, and they both perceive the world around them differently, then that means that there might not be a material world because everything's just happening separately to them. But if two separate minds are perceiving the same phenomena at the same time, then that means that there is a material world that is there because it's dual confirmed. Another argument is hallucination, is that when we have perceptions that are unreliable, other minds don't pick it up. So if I start hallucinating, there's someone else in this group called Bob, and you all go, there's no Bob here, bro, then that means that I'm having a perception that is not based in reality. So so to answer your question, I think the why we know that there is a material world outside of us is because there are other points of consciousness that can cross verify there being a material world. Does that answer you? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's interesting to hear that.
Okay.
I
Can
mean, I
I
understand.
want to touch on the analogy of the
Yeah.
square and the circle as well, because the square represents the material, right?
Yes.
So yeah, like because it's difficult to put it into words because we're using a reality of the square to express to try and figure out the circle, right? That
Yes, that's it. That's
tiny
100%
part, and
true
it's
as well.
impossible. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible because we're
Okay.
we're speaking from the square point of view, and that
Yes.
tiny part of that circle that we can't reach, it's not actually comprehensible. Like we don't have the capacity, especially with words.
Yes,
It's
but
not possible.
yeah, that's a paradox of empiricism
Yeah,
that because we are materially based creatures, we can't understand or apprehend the immaterial because we are material. So this is what like Richard Dawkins just doesn't understand. He's so stupid in this regard, right? Is that he just doesn't understand that if we are material beings, the way that we think is based on material presuppositions. Everything about our thinking structure, ideas, non-ideas, sorry, no, not non-ideas, just ideas are based on a material framework. So if you say that there's anything beyond it, it's all like, well, there's no evidence for it. There's no evidence for God. And it's like, well, yeah, if God is beyond empiricism, then we can't use empiricism to measure it. It's like using a ruler to measure weight, right? It's like, no, that's not what that tool is used for. But that might be different than what Angelo's saying a little bit, though, I think. I think
yeah,
Angela's,
but I do think the fact that the square and the circle problem exists is sort of proof that
yeah,
that paradox is kind of real. Like it's oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even in a material way, like the material symbol of the square and circle not being able to harmonize, the infinite and finite being are like you can't tessellate them. Uh,
Exactly, yeah. And in the fact that they are, our world is made of geometry and mathematics. If people like Richard Dawkins can't see that this square and circle sort of represents the fact that the immaterial does exist, then that there's some sort of there's an issue there.
yeah, I know what you mean, 100%. Um, the infinite, the infinite is like people don't realize how mind-boggling like the concept of infinite is. Most people think it's just something going on forever. It's not, because forever implies the existence of like almost distance or time. But when something is infinite, it's beyond, when something is infinitely long, it's not very long. It breaks the definition of long. Or when something is infinitely like long in a time sense, right? It's not a long time. It is, it breaks the definition of time. So by definition, the universe is finite. It's not infinite. Time will be finite. Time will end because time began.
Yeah.
Now,
Also, yeah, I was going to also say infinity and zero are very connected as well. There's a very deep
so that's a good,
connection there.
yeah. Zero is a better way of visualizing the infinite than like a billion zillions plus another billion zillions forever.
Yeah, it's a easier way for us to comprehend zero than infinity, I guess.
Yeah.
But
But yeah,
isn't it?
zero is like the below, and infinity is the above almost.
But isn't it
Yes.
that everything is infinite? Although you can reduce it to something that is not infinite. Like for
Sorry,
example, you
say
take
that again.
one. I think that everything is infinite, although you can reduce it to something that it appears to be not infinite. Let's say,
Yeah.
for example, one. One is composed of 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.3, and you can never end, and you can keep counting, but then you put all that as a one, and then it becomes one that itself is infinite, but you put it as something that is not
Yes.
infinite.
Yeah, that is like pi. That's the like principle of pi. Is like I get people to say uh like a clock is such a really good example of in like of like of pi of like an infinite circle because we have 12 points 1 2 3 4 and so on, right? We have 12 points, but then we have a more specific form of timekeeping called minutes, and then even more seconds, and then even more milliseconds, and it just goes on infinitely. And because it goes on infinitely, it's almost like this paradox of like if the distance between 1 hour or 1 minute and the next is actually an infinite amount of time, how does time pass at all? And it's just mind blowing. And it works in distance as well. I don't know if anyone's heard of like the rabbit and hare problem or something. It's like a rabbit and hare race, and it's like sorry, a rabbit and hare. Sorry, the tortoise and hare. So the tortoise moves 1 meter, and the hare will always, after the tortoise, it will run and then go to sleep, giving more time for the tortoise to move. So what happens is the tortoise moves 1 meter, and then the hare will move 10% of what the tortoise has done. And because of this, neither will ever reach the finish line or something like that. I should have worded it better. But anyway, the point is that um, between any 2 points is infinity. But at the same time, everything in the world is moving and happening. So
I,
it's
I think that's a very beautiful analogy for the dichotomy between consciousness and objects. I think that somehow that those two things summarize what the square and the circle are. The circle is infinite, whereas the square is like something that is not infinite, but they are working together. And when you look at very close, actually what it doesn't look infinite is infinite.
yes, yeah, but it's like infinite. It technically also doesn't exist as well. Um, so what's it called? Paradoxes. Um, oh, here it is. I think it's called Zeno's paradox. So Zeno's paradox is ooh, okay. Sorry, it's Achilles and the tortoise. And the idea is that if anything moves half of something else, like if we're in a race, you move a kilometer and then I move half of that, I'm never going to catch up to you or something like that. Anyway, does anyone have any other questions or points? No. James, you didn't want to say anything earlier?
No, not really. I just thought of an interesting connection with the tarot, actually, with the Kabbalah. So the
Oh, yeah.
zero, as I was saying, is the fool,
Hmm.
and then the 21st, I think it's 21st or 22nd card in that major arcana is the world,
Hmm.
and zero is like Ein Sof, and the world is our physical. It's like it's an interesting link as well that they have with the tarot.
Yes. Um,
Yeah,
oh,
I'm not sure.
I'm going to do a symbolism one on tarot as well. But I found something incredible that the two opposite the world card is the Earth Mother and the Hanged Man is the Sky Father because he's Odin. He's
Hmm.
Odin hung off of the tree, right? And in the book, Arthur Edward Waite, he explicitly says that the tree that the Hanged Man hangs off of is not like a wooden cross; it is a living tree. And the only god in mythology that does that is the Sky Father Odin. Now, if you get the T of the Hanged Man and you put the world on top of it, then you get
Ooh,
the Ankh.
ooh.
right? And what makes it even funnier is that the numbers are 12 for the Hanged Man and 21 for the world, and they're inversible. And as well, the Hanged Man and the world, Fortuna in the world, are making the same leg gesture. They're crossing the legs. And so I'll get into it later. I'll do one on tarot, but I believe that this is 100% intentional. The Hanged Man and the world are the Earth Mother and Sky Father put on top of each other, create an arc, and they are 12 and 21. Numbers that add up to three being the divine number. Anyway, well, we're getting well off track, but thanks everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate some good feedback. We're likely going to do this monthly, so I have so many other. I went from like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about to I have so many things for us to get into. I didn't even get to talk about the four elements. I didn't really get to talk about the Sky Mother, Sky Father, and Earth Mother. I have a whole lecture on the Earth Mother alone. Thank you very much, Leif and Ben, and thank you for the engagement. Thanks for you guys watching. Thank you, Angelo, and thank you, James, as well, for a good little discussion. Angelo, I think we might have to schedule up a little debate on what we talked about there. So,
Yes.
Once again, I went to consciousness, and it's like it can go on forever.
Angelo loves consciousness, I tell you. Consciousness comes up, Angelo.
I just want to drop consciousness. I want to talk about something, like to call it in a different way. Just
Yeah.
because I feel that we fall into a trap every time that we speak about consciousness. Just
Yeah.
because consciousness is something that, first of all, we need to define it to be
Yes,
able to
I know what you
discuss
mean.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't define it, people just run with the concept. They just go off.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we'll do that. Debate on the nature of consciousness or something like that.
It's funny, yeah. Because once you define it, then you sort of lose the essence of it almost.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. And this is recorded, so I'll probably whack it up on YouTube, and then you can watch it back or something. And yeah. So see you guys later. See you guys next month.
Thanks, Malik.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Malik. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Bye.